Good morning, Grinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blenderhead, Blender HD. If you want to follow me on Twitter, and we're back. It's Thursday, February 23rd. Back from the NBA All-Star break, and back in my eyes, my black eyes from my pickleball injury. They're slowly going away. It's gotten better. It's gotten better. It just looks like I'm a little bit tired. I am a little bit tired, right? Had a couple of days off, able to sleep in a little bit more. But I'm glad to be back on the show. I'll be covering. This is like a mailbag episode. Okay, I always get questions in. Send your questions in for the show. If you have any topics that you would like to have covered, any specific questions about anything, email them in. Questions@theoryofdfs.com. You see it on the scroll on the bottom of the screen. Questions@theoryofdfs.com. And I sort through and I go in detail answering anything that you have for me. I typically let questions about certain topics kind of like see what multiple people are maybe having issues with or having questions about, and then I start going over those. And sometimes, it's a topic that lasts, a week and a half. We go period by period through it in an unstructured way. If you want structured learning, I'd suggest you get the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports, my two courses, the Fundamentals Masterclass, as well as the Advanced course that comes with Excel tools. You get that at theoryofdfs.com. So today I'm just going through like some submitted questions in that maybe they don't really kind of fit anywhere, and they probably don't need an entire show about them, just so I can get them off my plate, right? Mailbag episode, why not? Mailbag today. Tomorrow we're doing MMA, right? I am playing the MMA slate this coming week, 13 fight card on at the Apex. So we'll be covering that tomorrow. But give me those thumbs ups. Give me the thummy thumbs. You know how I miss them. I miss the thummy thumbs in the morning. So hit the thumbs up button. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. What does this here? Early, as usual, Daniel Hutchins, Nerdy Tenor, welcome back. DFIC, Kickstart. Yeah, Nerdy Tenor. I do I'm an Onyx tier person. I do the prize chest. Typically, I get like 30,000, maybe 50,000 crowns. And then I saw on Twitter last night, it's like 5 million crowns. Like, here you go, 5 million crowns, which crowns are equal to 550 crowns equal $1. That's for like DK dollars. So 5 million crowns is like $9,091 or something. So that's nice to get out of the blue, right? It's more like rake back. I mean, you're paying a ton in rake as it is. So here's $9,000. There you go. Typically mine is like what? $54, right? 54, 70 bucks, something like that. But I guess I don't play as high volume as much as Nerdy Tenor, but it's always nice to get the weekly prize chests. But I do have questions here in my inbox. Remember, send in your questions at theoryofdfs.com. If you don't send in questions, I don't got answers. What am I going to talk about? Nerdy Tenor says, with the amount of rake I pay, they should be sending me daily love letters. Yeah, but that's not that. Love letters, they're not worth anything. I'd rather the prize chest. I'd rather the prize chest. You just give me the money back. Just give me the money. Okay, so let's go through some of this stuff. Okay. Do I even say people's names? Luke Holbrook, right? Some of these are old. Some of these, I mean, I let them stockpile up to see, what topics to cover. But I'll always answer everything. So I'm not gonna go through like every. I mean, some people send like paragraphs upon paragraphs of stuff, but the main thing is I'm a small stakes casual player. Play a lot of hundos like the 100-man type of contests. They typically pay out like top 12, top 15, something, and 35-man 10x boosters. So basically top 3 pay for those, right? I believe top 3. What I want to know is if I'm thinking about these correctly, and how my thinking should change as I eventually, hopefully, move up in stakes. I generally play 3 to 5 lineups, each based around some kind of stack with chalkier pieces mixed in and maybe a player who is leverage off of some of the chalk. I'm assuming this for NFL, right? If you're talking about stacks, because in NBA, you're not stacking. Part of the thinking for these lineups, I can play the best plays and let my opponents make mistakes In other words, it's mostly first and maybe second level thinking. My questions are, is this the right way to approach these contests, at least at the lowest buy-ins, and at what entry amount should I expect the competition to change, where I need to focus more on second and third level thinking? What I don't want to assume is that if I'm successful at lower stakes, I could just apply the same strategies at higher stakes. Well, you really have to look at the contest that you're playing. Firstly, it's hard to determine exactly what it is you're doing when you're like, I'm going to play a stack with chalky pieces mixed in, and maybe like all of those words are word salad that don't mean anything. Okay. The main thing that is pointed out in this is you're describing lineups incorrectly. Okay. So once you get DFS, you will stop calling these types of lineups. You could describe lineups any way you want. Like I generally play 3 or 5 lineups, each based around some kind of stack, so they have correlation. Okay, doesn't mean if it's a stack or anything. Just like, okay, what does correlation do? It increases the variance of your lineup, which is what you want to do to some extent in progressive payout contests, such as the ones that you're playing, hundos, 10x boosters. Although it's not like a 10x booster isn't like first gets this, second gets that, third gets this, like progressively, it's just like the top 3. But still, that's like the top, 8% of the contest? You have to get all the way up there, so you need to increase the variance of your lineup. Where you want to decrease the variance of your lineup is in non-progressive payout structures, such as double-ups, right? You get the 50-50s. Right, you get to a certain point, half the field gets paid the same. Doesn't matter if you come in first or 50th, right? At 100-man 50-50. So you're probably looking to reduce the variance of your lineup. So when you say based around some kind of stack, you're just saying correlation. Increase the variance of your lineup. With chalkier pieces mixed in and maybe a player who's leveraged off of some of the chalk. So basically, you're looking to decrease the ownership of your lineup so that you can get points that the field is not getting. Okay? How you do it, you could do it in a million different ways. Maybe not a million, but a lot of different ways. But like I'm going to do this specific thing. It's like, no, I'm going to play a lineup that is slightly lower projected with lower ownership, right? It's still projection versus ownership. And that will increase the variance of your results and adding correlation so that when one event happens, another event is more likely to happen, that you go from the range of outcomes of your lineups become wider than your opponents. So you have more likelihood of when 3 players do well together, you're more likely to come in first, second, third, fourth, those types of places. When they do badly, you come in like 98th place. Right? So all you're doing is increasing the variance of your lineup. How are you doing so? Through correlation and through leverage. That's it. You could increase the variance of your lineup simply through more leverage or more correlation. Doesn't have to be a mix of the both. It could be a mix of any of them. So if you're playing, let's say, NFL, and your projected lineup, the top cash lineup is 120. You're playing a lineup at like 113 that is correlated and half is owned. How it is, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about, well, I'm gonna do 2+1. I'm gonna do 3+1. Oh, this running back is popular. I'm gonna play the opposite wide receiver because it's direct leverage off of that. You're just describing, dynamics of a lineup, but you could literally not look at any of the players in your lineup and just look at what's the total projection, what's the total ownership. You could just do that. And not even more. You don't even have to You don't have to stack even. You don't even have to stack in NFL. You could just say, I need to beat 100 people. And you take a look at those lineups, and a lot of people in those contests play lineups that are too chalky. That a lot of the players in a lot of the users, a lot of the lineups have a lot of overlap, meaning that out of a 10-player lineup, they're sharing 6, 7 of the same players. Right? You have 100 lineups in your contest, or let's say the 35-man 10x boosters. It's quite possible 28 lineups out of 35 have the same 4 players in it. And the fifth player is shared by like 14 other lineups in combination. Like you see tons of overlap. Ownership, 80% ownership, 70% ownership, 60% ownership. And people are kind of just playing 2v2s off each other. If that's the case, like you should be more inclined to lower your projection a little bit, not absurdly, or add more correlation that those lineups do not have. So you're not sharing the same points as much of the field. Now, you can't get to the extreme example and I'm going to sacrifice 30 points in projection. Probably not in a 35-man 10x booster. But like how you do it, don't think in terms of like, well, I'm going to stack. It's like, well, what happened in another sport? How would you do it in basketball? There's really no stacking in basketball. So what would you do in basketball? Most people are playing lineups that project 287 and are owned, X. I'm going to play a lineup that's like 282 and own half of X. And there you go. That would probably be a plus EV lineup, especially the more and more of your opponents that are playing lineups that project closer to 287. Because the only way to get lineups that project close to 287 is you got to share out of the 8 spots in the lineup. You're probably sharing 5 or 6 players, 4, 5, 6 players. So just don't have those combinations of players. Doesn't mean you have to fade all those players. Just don't have the similar combinations. You have to sacrifice a couple of points of projection to do so. But since so many of the lineups in your contest are sharing the same points, when those lineups do badly, a lot of them do badly. You're in a 35-man contest, and it's like if these three players have snowflakes, like 30 of the 30 lineups in your entire contest all have they're all going down, and you're like, I only have one of those guys. Well, it's kind of easy because now you're not playing against 34 lineups. You're kind of playing against 3 or 4 lineups that are just like kind of pseudo duplicated. They're not duplicated in full, but similar combinations in most of your opponent's lineups. That will happen at any stakes level. The stakes don't matter. Just you have to study those contests. And from my experience, in 10x boosters, in quintuple ups, like anywhere from 3x to 10x, too many people play cash lineups, cash style lineups, high, median, optimal lineups in those contests. The hundos, they do a little bit more. Maybe then people aren't throwing their cash lineups in, but they're still playing very high projected, high owned lineups. So you should be more inclined to sacrifice projection, add leverage, add correlation, add variance to your lineup in whatever way you see fit, and reap the EV rewards of that. Understand when you lose, you're going to get crushed, right? Because so many people are sharing the same points, right? But the whole goal is like in a hundo is you're still looking to come in first. It's a GPP, and even though you're not going to cash as often, when you win more than you should. So as far as first level, second level, third level thinking, you're always using second level thinking. First level thinking is, I'm going to play cash lineup there and not care about what anyone else is playing in the contest. But that's obviously flawed. The success and the amount of profit that you make is always going to be highly affected by what your opponents play. Now, if you see that you're playing a 35-man 10x booster and everyone's playing lineups that are 30 points lower projected than optimal, then play your optimal lineup. But I mean, I'm describing a contest that doesn't exist. In your 35-man 10x booster, maybe there's 2 or 3 lineups. Maybe there's 2 or 3 lineups in there where you're like, what did these people do? They didn't play this guy? They played these 3 guys, and you run their lineup through, and it's like their lineup is 24 points lower than your projected optimal. And it's like, okay, those are mistakes. But you don't get that many in that con. You're not gonna see that many of those lineups in a 35-man 10x booster or even in a hundo. Right? Maybe in a hundo, maybe you see 6 out of 100. That's not enough to even beat the rake, even if you're just gonna like kind of throw in your cash lineup. But just with anything, you have to look at you have to look at those contests. You have to study the contests that you play. So look, run those lineups. Look, just download the CSV. You have the projections from the day before, right? And run and see what every lineup was projected and owned. And projected to be owned or whatever. And do that every day. Don't do it. Oh, I'm gonna look at this contest for 2 days, 3 days. No, I'm talking about 30 days. I'm talking about 100. I'm talking about do this every day. Do it to the point in which you think it's stupid to do it anymore because it's so obvious. Right? You download the CSV, if this is DraftKings, obviously, of your hundo contest. And you see what are the projections, what are all the lineups, what is their projection, what is their ownership from the projected ownership. So you're using your figures from the day before. And you do that the next day and the next day and the next day. And you see what is your lineup in comparison to those lineups? I guarantee you that within a week, maybe 2 weeks, probably a week, you're going to see like the same thing over and over again. Right? You get enough evidence to go, okay, I see what most of these, I see a lot of people are playing two cashy lineups. Maybe you'll find it. Maybe some of these hundos, maybe people are playing the lineups are at much more frequency of equilibrium than you would think. They're not going to be, but I mean, it could happen. Depends on the contest. Certain days, maybe it does work out that way. You got to study. You got to study the contest that you play. Okay, so let me archive that. I'll just make sure because I always thought covered your question on today's show. I just want to make sure everyone, because I mean this question is from like a month and a half ago. But yeah, so Luke got taken care of you. Okay, there's some questions that from like a month and a half ago that I'm not going to answer today, only because they're going to be part of what's coming up the next couple of weeks. Okay, Josh Hunter. Okay, talking about the contest reviewer. Okay, this is more about what's in the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports for Advanced Players, one of the Excel tools. Says one of the suggestions you had a few episodes ago, which was, a month and a half ago, was to use the contest reviewer to see the average projection and ownership of the contest in general. To answer questions like, is it more exploitable to play a cash lineup because other entrants are giving up too many projected points and so forth? For the contest reviewer tool, I can only see comparing to specific individuals, not the contest as a whole. Yes, I mean, what you do in the contest reviewer tool, you could check individual users. But in the contest reviewer, you could grab all of the lineups. So you grab all the lineups, right? And you could just import them into the portfolio trimmer, right? As long as you have the projections in there. So if there's 30,000 people, I mean, you just import that in the portfolio trimmer. In the portfolio, you could sort by anything. Now, in the contest reviewer, if you know Excel, you could just sort the line. You could compute that. You could just add a column and kind of do it yourself. I don't care about the average project. I don't care about average projection and ownership. I want to see the number of lineups. What percentage of the field have lineups that are too low projected? What percentage of the field have lineups that are too high owned? And whatever numbers you say are too high owned or too low projected are up to you. Whatever it is. You go, I want to see how many lineups. There's 5,000 lineups in my contest. Right? There's 10, let's make it the math easier. There's 10,000 lineups in my contest. I'm going to take all these lineups. I'm going to put them in the portfolio trimmer so I could see what the projection and ownership of every lineup is. I don't care what user it is, right? I don't care. And I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to filter, I'm going to trim even. You can even trim. Out of these 10,000 lineups, I want to trim anything that's like if your top optimal lineup was in basketball was 300. You're like, I want to see how many lineups are under 280. So you just max the trim at 280 and go, how many lineups are left? And you may go, 716. Okay, that's 7.16%. Right. Okay. Then maybe you do the trim the other way with the ownership, and you go, I'm going to trim out lineups that are, let's say your top optimal lineup is 180% total owned. And you're like, it's like, yeah, I think anything over like 165 is too chalky. So you set the trim at the min at 165, and then see what's left. And you say, okay, how many lineups are 165% owned or above? And then maybe it leaves you with the 1,600 lineups. Okay, that's 16% of the field. So like 16% of the field is playing two chalky lineups, and 7% of the field is playing two low projected lineups. You combine them together, and you go, okay, 23% of the field is playing lineups that are probably negative EV for this contest type. And there you go. Right? And then maybe you say another. Let's take a look at this contest. Let's take a look at it. And to me, that's a better way of judging. But you will almost always find that the largest field contests are the ones that have the highest percentages. You'll almost always. And in the small field stuff, you're more likely to find a higher percentage of the too high owned cash type lineups than the low projected lineups. So like if you were to study like the 121 in MLB, for instance, you won't find that like out of what? Typically there's like 500 entries or something like that. The 121, I believe. Well, let's say 500 entries. You may only find like 20 that are like too low projected, but you may find like especially on like a core slate or something like that, you may find like 30% of the lineups are like, oh, the two chalk pitchers in the chalk stack and the chalk one-off, right? And it's like a 2v, and people are playing 2v2s of that. And that could be 30% of the contest, right? Which is highly beneficial for you to not play that type of lineup. But the low projected lineups may not exist as much. In basketball, if you play the 3 max 777 or whatever the hell, the triple digit main GPP for the higher stakes, you may not find that many low projected lineups, but you may find a lot more like, oh, they just threw their cash lineup or a cash type lineup, something that is only a 2v2 off the optimal. And you may find a lot of those types of lineups in those contests and not low projected. Now, those types of lineups, remember, you gain equity from those types of lineups in different ways, right? The low projected lineups the low projected lineups are bleeding equity from the min cash zone, as well as like the top 5 percentile range, but it still has a shot at coming in the top 5 percentile because, obviously a lineup that projects that low is also going to be much lower owned. So there's leverage there. So it will hit on occasion for first place. But the too high own lineups, they have a lot of min cash equity. So like your lineup is actually seeding min cash equity to those lineups, but those lineups are seeding like top 1 percentile equity to you, right? And obviously in a payout structure where progressively goes way up towards the top 1%, you much prefer that equity than the min cash equity. So let the people that play their cash lineups in those types of, fine, take all the min cash equity you want. But yes, you could use the contest reviewer, and then if you want to just see just lineups in general, just transfer them over to the portfolio trimmer. I mean, the portfolio trimmer is basically just, here are all the lineups, here are the projections. So there you go. We're gonna add up all the stuff for all the lineups, and there you go. You can do whatever you want with those lineups. So there you go. That was kind of a technical support question, maybe, I guess. Covering your question on today's show. Knocking them out. Knocking it out. Okay. And if you have anything to add, feel free to put it in the YouTube chat. Okay. I'm going to cover this later. Okay, this one is from Otis Thompson. Okay, this is the common question. Yeah, so okay, for Otis, I'm just gonna basically say Because he's asking like the common question. Here's a common question. I know there's not a set amount of median to sacrifice, but how do I judge how much median I should be sacrificed? The same, like how much without running the lineups. If you look, Otis, on all these shows are labeled. Okay, I've covered this extensively recently on shows that say projection versus ownership exploit. Like in that range, just go through. You could probably 4 different shows, and the answer is there is no answer. Okay, one of the keys to questions in DFS. Okay, put it as a note. Put it as a notepad. Take a little Post-it note and put it on your monitor. Okay. Okay. If you have a question, put it on your monitor, because apparently people, you say something and it goes in one ear and out the other. So print it out on big poster board. You have an office, get a 20-foot sign. Go to Fast Signs and get it made. Can this question be answered with a yes or a no? Can this question be answered with an exact number? If the answer is yes for either of those questions, that you're not thinking about DFS properly. You could just stop right there. You could literally stop right there and go, okay, I have this question. And I go, is it answerable by me saying yes or no? And they go, yeah, I'm asking you if I can do X. And it's like, then you're not thinking about DFS properly, because you could do anything you want. I mean, there's no set. You could legitimately play any lineup you want, given the context. Can I play a lineup that sacrifices 5 points in projection? Yeah. So I could do that in a head-to-head against someone that's playing the optimal lineup. I go, no, I wouldn't do it there, right? So there's no clear yes or no. It all depends on context. Yeah, I can answer a question with yes or no, probably with if you write out 700 pages of your question, where it's a very specific thing and a very sure, maybe at that point, but no one asked those types of questions. Then when you're asking for an exact number, right? I'd say the answer would be, if I knew that there was an exact number, I wouldn't be doing these shows, right? If there was an exact number that was absolutely true, like how much median project 5.7426, and if you did X, and if you set lineup HQ to 3.8% randomness, right? And you set your exposures to max of 17.2, then once you press the button, money comes out of your computer. That doesn't exist. There's no such. You need a time machine, right? For exact numbers. Or what I'd say, to get the more precise number, you need some type of simulation methodology. Are you nerdy tenor, right? Do you program supercomputers? They go, no. So there is even coming close to a precise answer is going to be impossible. So all we could do is estimate. All we could do is use blunt methodologies. And when you're using blunt methodologies, the preciseness isn't going to be there. So can I give up 5 points of projection? Can I give up 7 points of projection? I don't know. It depends on the slate, right? Run the lineups for that slate and go, does this seem good enough to you? Well, I'm only giving up 3 and I haven't done well for an entire season. Well, maybe you're not giving up enough. I'm giving up 7 million points. Probably that's not good either. So where is it? Somewhere in the middle. Well, what's the number? There's no correct. I can't give you a correct answer. I'm judging it also. Right? The same thing with ownership projection. Any of these projections, there's a margin of error. There's a fragility in all of it. Once you add that fragility and then you add variance, dude, the margin of error is humongous. So there's not going to be an exact number on anything. You know, the concept that you need to worry about more when it comes to that is there's fucking noise in here. What the fuck? Is there a bird stuck in my wall? I have no idea. Well, I'll check that out later. The concept is that as your projection, if you're playing GPPs, as your projection goes down, your ownership should go down also. That's what you care about the most. I'm going to play a lineup that projects for X and is owned at Y. But there's a lineup that projects better that is lower owned. It's like, why aren't you playing that lineup instead? Don't you want a higher projection for lower ownership? So play that lineup. But that lineup has this guy. Who cares what player's in it? Does he project? Is there a projection for it? Is he a number? Yes, okay. Then you don't need anything anymore. You have to get past that. Okay, let's see. Douglas Schaefer is asking, okay, this is something that I asked for to the lineup HQ team. As far as in the build rules, you could see here in the build rules, you could have your ownership. You could have a min total lineup ownership, max total lineup ownership. So it's like, oh, I only want to see lineups that are between 140% owned and 160% owned, if you want to do that. But there's no way of doing that with fantasy points. Like, I want to build 300 lineups, but I don't want any lineup that projects lower than 268. Right? You're typically not capping it at the top, but it's like, oh, I don't want any lineups that are, you run the optimal, you do something like this, right? You go here, you run the optimal type of thing, right? There you go, okay, 285.09. And it's like, I don't want to see any lineup that is 270, right? I don't want to build any lineup that is lower than 270. But there's no option in lineup HQ to do that. I've asked for it. And apparently that the way that the lineup builders work, I think this is for any optimizer, is that it's obviously doable if you were doing it yourself. Like if you're only doing it for you, you could obviously do this in like Python, right? Or something, or whatever programming language you're using. But from a lineup builder perspective, it also takes up more time. Okay, so apparently, this is what I've been told, I believe. Because I asked for this. I asked, why can't we just make it that there's a min so I make sure that my lineups don't clump as much? And it's possible to put in. It's like, I don't want any lineup that's lower than 270. But apparently, the way that algorithms work, the way that lineup builders go through their building process or anything like that, it adds enough time to that process where if so many people were doing that and building that way before lock, it would slow down for like everyone, right? So a lot of times on RotoGrinders and other optimizers is that it needs to be so a lot of the functionality needs to be scalable. So if you had your own, if lineup HQ was only for you and that's it, and all of the server capacity and all the everything, all the bandwidth was just for you, like, yeah, you could do pretty much anything you want. It would take a little bit longer. Yeah, it would take longer to go through, but waiting an extra 20 seconds for lineups may be fine for you. But imagine multiplying the 20 seconds of lineups to 2,000 people that are using lineup HQ at the same time. Okay, then there would be you're sitting there waiting 10 minutes. I don't know if there's a bird. I don't know if there's there may be a mouse in my wall. I don't know. I hear chirping. Or are the birds outside of my window? I have no idea. But yes, but Doug, I believe that's the answer to that. There's nothing that we could do. There's nothing that I could do. But yeah, if you want to talk to RG support or something and say, hey, I have a suggestion or something, feel free to put that in again. But I believe the last time we talked about this in the lineup HQ team, this was maybe over a year ago. Like I wanted it. And apparently it's more of a scalability thing than anything. I believe. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe I don't remember. Maybe they can do it. And I don't know. But I believe that's the case. Right? Just covering these. See, these are the types of questions where it's like, what am I saving these for? Like, when am I ever going to have a show that is all based around this like one thing or anything? Let's see. Oh, John Hoffman asks about books to follow up. Okay, I bought and completed the Advanced Theory of DFS course. I wanted to see if you had any books that you would recommend to dive further into the game theory or statistics to help improve my game. I typically only play football and would be using the off season to polish up on everything. So books, I mean, you could, I think from a mindset perspective, I like Nassim Taleb, right? He has what? He has 4 books. What? Fooled by Randomness, Black Swan, Anti-Fragile, and something else. Nassim Taleb. They're they're not like the easiest of reads, but like they put you in the probabilistic mindset like that. So like obviously you could read like von Neumann, right? I mean, do you really want to go into game theory? You're buying what Morgan Stern with the theory of games by what von Neumann and whatever the guy's name is. You can read that. It's a math book. You're not, dude. I don't even understand what's in that book, right? Pretty much. But as far as like statistics wise, if you want to brush up on statistics, there are tons of free courses. I would suggest, Khan Academy or Coursera. I think has some stuff like that. They're YouTube statistics courses, and just do that. I mean, if just simply understanding distributions and standard deviations and even statistical concepts that go into like projection models, right? Even though if you're not modeling that, but if you understand what correlation coefficients are and what regression is, all those, just conceptually, that'll still help because that still gets you into that probabilistic mindset. Anything that you where you could think in terms of probability, that will help you in DFS. Hit the thumbs up button because it's apparently on the screen. Steve needed something to do. It's like I need something to do. Oh, here's the banner. Hit the thumbs up button. We need more thumbs. Apparently, we need more thumbs. But yes, if I were to read anything, probably this. I mean, I've read all 4 of his books. Right? He only has 4, right? What's the 4th one? What is the 4th one? I could look that up, right? Nassim Taleb. Where's books? Black Swan Skin in the Game, right? He's some other stuff, I guess. But yeah, basically Fooled by Randomness, The Black Swan, Skin in the Game, Anti-Fragile. Something, whatever. They're supposed to be read. I think they're supposed to be read in order. I didn't read them in order. But that's what I would say. I think the most important one, I think, is Fooled by Randomness. For DFS purposes. If you're looking, I mean, if you're watching the show, you probably understand what's in Fooled by Randomness. Basically, you read Fooled by Randomness, right? If you don't understand that that most of the patterns that you see are not patterns, or you're just looking at variance, right? On 2 the past 3 full moons, Mike Trout is at a home run. Yeah, you're fooled by randomness. That's it. What does that matter, right? So you see tons of that in DFS and sports betting, tons of trends and small sample selection bias examples and stuff that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. You would need a larger sample size, right? Be like, every single full moon for 20 years, Mike Trout hits a home run. That still could be random, but it's less likely to be random because now you have a much larger sample size, right? So that's being fooled by randomness. But I mean, it's all very similar. Like Black Swan is about outliers, so it's Anti-Fragile. I mean, they're all similar concepts in these books, and you have to like. I mean, depends on what reading style like. Nassim Taleb sometimes writes in a very what's a polite way of putting it? Like he writes too academic. Like I don't know, it's not academic. He writes almost to make himself sound smart, right? When he can make he could say a lot of things in much less words and be clearer by it. So that's a better way of putting it. But they're not bad books. But that's what I would read. Read those 4 books. Okay, what else do we got? Right, just knocking these out. I got one about combinatorics. I'm going to be talking about that soon in the next week or 2 anyway. Let's see. Jeremy Robbins. Okay. You're asking about, okay, so this is someone that's playing on a site that we don't offer like projections for. So owner's box. Apparently, I think you play that in like Ontario, Canada, or something like that. But because the pricing is different, you really can't use lineup HQ, right? Because you can't build lineups because you can't change the salaries. So basically, what he's asking is that what would you do, right? He said he's been able to use the scoring. The scoring is similar to Yahoo and FanDuel. I've been able to use those numbers to do a point per dollar calculation, but because the salary is a difference, have a bit trouble trying to develop my own idea of implied value. I like to use the RGV column in HQ as a sorting mechanism. Oh, well, that's easy. All you have to do is come up with a threshold, and as long as it's a multiplier and a constant, like you could apply that across the board. So like that RGV, remember RGV is salary adjusted plus minus. So what should we expect as our threshold of making value for that salary? And then the RGV is what the actual projection is, plus or minus. So if Luka for 11.9K, we have deemed that making value is 55. His projection is 60. So his salary adjusted plus minus is 5, right? Is plus 5. His projection is 5 points over that threshold. Whatever threshold you want to make, right? Whatever you deem. But just understand that the lower in salary, the more points you need for GPPs. Like just getting, I got getting 8x, getting 7x out of a 3K player is 21 points. Getting 7x out of a 10K player is 70 points. Right? 21 points and using up one of your 8 spots in basketball may not be enough. 21 may not be enough. So that's why you add a constant to make up the fact that the lower price players need a little bit more of their threshold needs to be a little bit higher. And the higher price players, their threshold, you don't need 7x out of 11K player. You don't need 77. You'd love 77, but do you need making value? What's that threshold? You probably don't need 77. So that's why using a multiplier and a constant, whatever that threshold is. So let's say, for instance, you have a 10K player and a 3K player, and you want to make the salary adjusted value plus minus to be requisite for those salaries. So let's say you deem that you'd want, I mean, let's just put it at 30. I mean, that's a little too high, but let's just say 27 or something like that. Around 27 that you want that threshold to be. Well, then normally, I mean, you just go, well, it's 9x. Yeah, but if you applied 9x to everywhere, you'd say that the threshold for a 10K player is 90 points. Like that's way too high, right? That's way, right? You'd see, salary adjusted plus minus of a 10K player is minus 30 at that point, right? So that's why you need the constant. So if you were going to use like 27 for 3K, it would be more like 5x plus 12, right? Right, 3K times 5 is 15 plus 12 is 27, right? Something like that. I'm just using this. I just pull it out of my ass as an example. 5x plus 12. Because now what's 5x plus 12 of 10, right? Of 10K. That would be 62. That would be the threshold of a 10K player. How about a threshold of a 6K player at 5x plus 12? That would be 42. These may be a little too high, right? These may still be a little too high. Maybe you want your threshold for a 3K player to only be 24 or 25. Right? So maybe you do 5x plus 10. Or maybe you do it at 24 and you do 4x plus 12. Right? 4x times 3 plus 12. It'll change these. What's 4x times 10? Then it'll make this 52 and make the 6K player 24, 36. If these look like good enough thresholds for you, then there you go. Apply 4x plus 12 to everyone. And then what if their projection is over or under that threshold? So if the 10K player has a 60-point projection, their salary adjusted plus minus would be 8 plus 8. If the 3K player has a 20-point projection, their salary adjusted plus minus would be minus 4. right? Something like that, right? Whatever numbers you set it as, that's up to you. You're judging it relatively to other players. So it doesn't, as long as you're applying it across the board to everyone, does it have to be exact? But the main thing is making sure you have a multiplier and a constant. Because then if you just have a if it's like, oh, I need 7x out of everyone, you don't need 7x out of a 10K player. You'll probably need 7x out of a 3K player, but you don't need 7x out of a 10K player. So what are you going to do? Well, for 10K players, I'm only going to put in for 6x. It's like, no, well, now you're not applying it across the board the same. So that's why using that constant. Maybe you're like, okay, 4x plus 15. Maybe it's 5x plus 5. Whatever you feel comfortable with. Or look down the bands of salary and go, well, if I'm applying this for a 3K player, what does that mean for a 10K player? What does that mean for a 6K player? Are those the thresholds that I'm looking to judge the salary adjusted value against? And if you're fine with that, with 52, 36, 24, then there you go. Now you can apply it for a $6,800 player and a $7,200 player and a $4,200. And then you get the same exact column. That's the RGV column here in Lineup HQ for whatever pricing, right? Because obviously it's different pricing. So determine, like, okay, on owner's box, the guy is X price. How much should I be getting for an X price player, regardless, as a value level to make value? And then what's their projection? How many points above or below that projection that is for that salary? And there you go. Is it even necessary to do that? No. If you're just building straight lineups, I mean, the players that have an XS plus salary adjusted plus minus will appear in more of your lineups. They'll contribute more points to your lineup. So they're going to end up there anyway. So we could remove the RGV column in Lineup HQ. And if you ran 300 lineups, you'd be like, wow, I'm getting a lot of the same players that have a high RGV. I mean, like if you ran lineups for today's slate or whatever with the current projections that we have right now, like you're going to be getting a lot of Lillard, Embiid, Luka lineups with THT and Kevin Looney, right? Look at all these centers. You're probably getting Walker Kessler, right? You're getting some combination Zach Collins, Walker Kessler, right? You're getting some type of you're fitting in one of these 11K players. Probably Lillard more so than Embiid, because you're using your two center spots on, these cheaper centers, right? It's going to happen anyway. So do you even need to have this column? No, you don't need to. Because you could run the lineups and see that those are the players that are going to show up in more lineups anyway. So, yeah. So there, answered that question. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions? Because I've got questions here that I will be covering. Nope, I think that's it. Right? I think that's it for now. Send in your questions. Questions at theoryofdfs.com. If you want to get them answered on the show, you don't have to even show up live, right? And I will, just like I've been doing here. Even if you don't watch every day, even if you don't listen every day, if I cover your question, I'll at least email at whatever point and say, hey, covered your question on today's show. So you can just go take a look at it. Tomorrow we're doing MMA. Okay, we got an MMA card. I got stuff in my spreadsheet working. Well, I mean, I haven't filled out any of the odds or anything, but they're there. They're there. We'll be covering it tomorrow. If you want premium MMA stuff, right? The Ground and Pound podcast with Mike and Liam. Got the expert survey. We got the projections. We got the ownership. We got all that type of stuff. Sign up for RotoGrinders Premium. Get a combo premium package. You get NBA, MLB, MMA, PGA. You get everything. So now what? $99 a month or something? Something like that. Get $10 off your first month. Click on that link in the description. Right? We're always running types of things. I think if you sign up for Prize Picks, you get something new. If you sign up for something or other, there's all these links around to get it a little bit cheaper. But you can click all those links in the description. Hit the thumbs up button. You know how much I love the thumbs. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live. and I'll be back tomorrow with MMA, and then we're back to a normal schedule now. Finally, right? No vacations, no All-Star breaks and Super Bowl parties, no nothing. We're down to a normal schedule. We got what 30-something days till baseball season. That's nice, right? They got some spring training. I'm not playing spring training slates, but we'll get into more baseball stuff coming. Probably the end of March, right? End of March, leading into MLB season. So if you got your MLB questions, feel free to send them in. Questions at theoryofdfs.com. But other than that, I'll be back on a normal schedule, answering your DFS strategy questions like I normally do here, Monday through Friday, 11 o'clock Eastern, on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.